There we go. Ah! I don't know what it's doing. Oh, Jesus. God. God in heaven. Okay. And now there's a bug in my room. Hi. Hello. Hi. Hello. My name is Sara London, and today Uncle Fester and I are going to be talking about philosophy. Well, broader philosophy, smaller Plato's Apology. So in my downtime recently, I've gotten back to my roots, which is reading philosophy. I was a philosophy minor in undergrad, and because my graduate program was intensively essentially about one thing, I hadn't really gotten the chance to sit down and play with the big boys lately. So it's nice. Philosophy is the kind of self-indulgent thing that not only helps you understand why people used to think the way that they think, but it also helps you cultivate opinions about why the world is the way that it is today, and why people might be making decisions that you don't really understand. It's meaningful for me to find answers to things going on in the current world in past discourses, because though it might be delusional, it makes me feel like someone has some semblance of how the world works out there for asking these big existential questions. So I thought I would impart the joy of my latest big read on y'all and see if I can't put together some coherent thoughts about, my world and the world, my place in the world, after brushing up on some old stuff. And forgive me if I keep glancing down. I'm looking at my notes because I have notes today. I came very prepared. So just a really quick rundown. I feel like a lot of people might not know the backstory here. Socrates, the man, the myth, the allegory, maybe. So in terms of ancient Greek philosophy, Socrates is granddaddy, Plato is daddy, and Aristotle is a grandson, or just sonny boy, in terms of who taught who. So this is Socrates' big speech, the Apology, like Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman, trying to defend himself in front of the 500-person Athenian council, which, spoiler alert, didn't work, and they killed him. He was accused of corrupting the youths, which I also hope one day to be accused of, as many young men, especially those young men that he tutored, kind of took up like him. See Socratic Method later. I'll get into it. And it made their parents pretty mad. He was also accused of impiety, which is kind of a big deal in ancient Greece. It's kind of like a slander to the gods. I need to brush up on my ancient Greek civilization to know how terrible I guess that really was. So Socrates gets up there, and in a move I very much do not recommend if you're trying to not come off like a total jackass, he goes, okay, so I'm just gonna start off with a little anecdote, and I promise it's relevant. Just bear with me, guys. Don't interrupt. Hey guys, can you not interrupt? Perfect interruption, for the record. New York City apartment, not the quietest place to film something. So Socrates goes, so my friend Chaerephon went to the Oracle of Delphi, and he asked her if anyone was wiser than me. And would you believe it? She said no. Socrates is the wisest man. And I said, no, that can't possibly be true. And much like words I've actually said about myself at points in my life, he verbatim, he doesn't get it. Quote, since I am all too conscious of not being wise in any manners, great or small. Ham it up, my man. You got nowhere to go but the grave. Yes. Hammer it home. And he's like, okay, fine, I've got to see this with my own two eyes. And he goes out there to test whether or not he really is the wisest dude out there, hence his traipsing around Athens teaching young men how to ask questions. And his personal mission ends up being to pick everyone's brain with the Socratic Method. Socrates' Socratic Method, right? So if you aren't really savvy to the Socratic Method, it's essentially when someone makes any kind of assertion and you ask them questions about it until the other person starts to think critically about what they're saying. Oftentimes you ask someone to clarify until they slip up and admit that their assertion was just an assumption, and you're like, okay, let's figure out what you really think instead of just assuming what you should be thinking, judging by what you heard from somebody else. Like, it's not about winning an argument or being right, which is actually pretty contrary to what the sophists were teaching the kids in school, which is, think of, debate team, where you just learn to argue your point. In the Socratic Method, it's more about learning, like, the capital T truth, which our boy Plato cannot get enough of, which you learn that from Socrates. It sounds a lot more complicated than it is, honestly. It's basically like someone who, shoots a platitude at you, like, good things come to those who wait, or something, and you're like, okay, what exactly are good things? Or what do you mean by wait? Until they go, oh, wow, I never actually thought about it like that. Maybe I don't think that good things come to those who wait, and maybe I actually don't know what good things are in the first place. And then you sit down and you guys hash out, what good things are and what wait means, and you just talk about it. I love it. I love it. I love the Socratic Method. So Socrates is out there, testing his little hypothesis, and he talks to politicians, and he talks to poets, and he talks to merchants, and he cruises through the Athenian citizenry doing all the Q&A, until he realizes, wait, every time I talk to someone, it goes the same way. They assume something, then I ask them about it, and then they get defensive, and then they get mad at me, and then they walk away thinking that they were just as wise as they were before we talked. So, like, everyone out there thinks that they're wise, and I was gonna curse, but I shouldn't say curse words. I'm just a mean person. So maybe I really am the wisest dude out there, because, like, I seem to be the only one who, in the words of the late, great Anna Nicole Smith, I know nothing about nothing. And he's like, look, guys, Athenian council, I know I'm annoying, and I know the people of Athens think that I am a pest, but I just don't want you guys to get complacent and cruise through life, because the unexamined life is not worth living. And that's real. That's a verbatim quote. And the council's like, yeah, buddy, you're guilty. You're guilty. And he pulls the, well, you may as well just kill me then, because if you exile me and make me a promise never to do philosophy, you make me a promise to never do philosophy again, I'm gonna break that promise, because, what was it? He would rather die. He'd rather die without philosophy in his life, because he doesn't know whether or not death is a good thing or a bad thing, because he doesn't know what death is, and nobody knows what death is, but he knows that life without philosophy is the worst thing ever. So you may as well just, like, kill me. And the council's like, okay, then die. And then they kill him. They make him drink the hemlock, and then he dies. So, pour one out for Socrates. Pour one out. The guy he really got it. Oh, my boy. So that's that. That's the apology. And, I'm starting to think, after reading this in our modern world and in modern times, that there are so many reasons that this is pertinent to my understanding of the world now on so many levels. But I have my notes, so I divvied it up into a couple different bullet points. So the first one is kind of the cultural aspect of this whole thing. As an American right now, I think the idea of, putting someone to death for asking why other people think the way that they do seems, I don't know, it just seems like a little relevant, maybe. And not just politically, because I think that's, it's way too complicated, and a complete Pandora's box of problematic statements were I to delve into how every single American on both sides of the aisle needs to look at the platitudes they repeat from social media or their friends or their family, and maybe just look at those with an unbiased and non-judgmental eye, and maybe ask themselves why they believe that they do. Oops, I think I did just open that Pandora's box. Oh well. Well, it leads into my next point, which is that I think, like, whether it's ancient Greece or modern America, I think that there's a moral value placed upon why you're inquisitive, or why you're looking to have your questions answered, and why you're looking to poke a hole in someone's argument and make them think about what they believe. And that Council of Athenians now is kind of the media and the internet and maybe even the government. Sometimes it's everybody around you. I think before you could even begin to open up a conversation about why someone thinks the way that they do, a jury of your peers would convict you on the basis of assuming that you're coming in to deconstruct an argument with an ulterior motive. Which honestly in the modern age is, probably very true. I think a lot of people do that. But it seems like people just like to bicker. And they don't like to understand. It's really hard. It's really hard to tell why someone might be trying to start a discourse with you. And usually it's because they think that you're wrong and they're right, and they want you to know that over and over and over again. So the second someone comes to you pleading for a discourse or wanting to ask about your beliefs, you automatically think, oh, okay, they're just doing this in the point of, perceived altruism or sanctimoniousness. They don't really care what I think or why I think it. They just need to be right. But all it takes is one person to change that dialogue. One person to turn a debate into a discourse. One person like Socrates or like anybody. Because it's not that hard. I mean, it's absolutely insane to me that something one dude did thousands of years ago, it still fits so well into what we should be expecting from each other and from ourselves. That if someone comes at you and says something like, wearing a mask is wrong, or all men are scum, or all lives matter, for instance, knowing full well it's going to antagonize you, you can be like, hold on, I'm not even going to play that game. You can say, what do you mean by wrong? What do you mean by scum? What do you mean by matter? What does that mean to you? I'm not trying to bicker, and I don't care about being right. I'm just trying to understand what you said so I can learn more about your point of view. And if they come at you with a logical fallacy instead of, engaging with you, you can throw up your hands and be like, you know what, I can't do anything about their resistance to wisdom. It's the way it's always been, and for some people it is the way it will always be. You can rest easy knowing that you're doing everything you can to understand the world we're living in, so you can learn more about what you're doing and what you think, and as much as what everybody else thinks. And if people assume you're trying to, deconstruct notions because you're a jerk, or you're devil's advocate, or you're pot stirrer, which is see point 2 coming up, do the Socratic Method for the right reasons, they don't know your motives, and they never will. So they're just looking to accuse someone of impiety or corrupting the youth, and there really is nothing you can do about that. There's nothing we've ever been able to do about it, and maybe there's nothing that we'll ever be able to do about it. But I think there's comfort in that somehow, I think. The second thing is just interpersonally from Socrates the dude. I think, though I definitely, I went in a little bit on the, try not to get caught up in what other people think thing. I think in some ways I don't love how much of a jerk Socrates was in the Apology, because, I think in a lot of ways it invalidates your points when you essentially give someone who already uses logical fallacies in their argument the ammunition to ad hominem attack you, which is an attack on your person, attack on your character. Because it reminds me a little bit of the self-righteous guy who's I don't care what you think, I already know that I'm smarter than you. And it's exactly the kind of thing that Socrates was trying to avoid doing and being, which even if he didn't want to come off that way, he kind of did, especially to the council who thought that he was a total jerk. Look, there's there's a super fine line between being someone who knows their own wisdom because of their ability to ask questions, and someone who assumes that they're wiser than other people because of that questioning ability. Like, staying humble is absolutely key to the Socratic method. It's key to get it across. And I just don't think Socrates did that towards the end. I mean, I forgive him. He's probably bitter as hell, but like, I think if he as a person can teach us anything, it's that you can't assume that you've got it all together just because you're more willing to confront your own assumptions than other people are to confront theirs. Because you still have that assumption then that you're wiser, which like pokes a giant hole in your argument, dude. So I guess the takeaway here on bullet point 2 is that be inquisitive, but don't think that you're wiser than anybody else for being that way. Because there very well could be something that you're especially defensive and unwise about. Because, like, we're all people. We're all flawed. You're not dying on any cross because you're asking someone, like, why or how or what. You're being a sensible human being, which I guess the bar really is that low. Whew. Finally, just personally, on a personal level, I think rereading this now was very important. I think as someone who seeks to know things, I know I'm not the only one who feels like this, probably me and everybody else in America right now, I feel very bombarded by all the stimuli and the different opinions and the different versions of facts. Because, like, especially tying to my first point about, America right now, I think that what a lot of people consider fact are just assumptions, drawn out assumptions or hyperbole. One could argue that, the dudes that Socrates went after in ancient Greece had kind of the same assumption mindset, but it was phrased differently about, big concepts like courage or love or wisdom. So Plato could make like a good solid piece of philosophical writing, not like the more coded slogans that we have today. We have this glut of information now right at our fingertips, and because a lot of the news that we're getting is not only news from news stations, but from articles written by people and from social media, all the wires are super crossed, and it's hard to know what is the truth and what's speculation. And I, for one, am feeling really overwhelmed by the state of the world sometimes, as I know many people are, and it hasn't been really easy to parse out why people are acting the way that they're acting or why they're doing what they're doing. But listen, I think that the takeaway here is that there's something comforting about knowing that the capital T truth, the answer, lies somewhere in the asking. Like, that regardless of the way people are gonna look at you or think you're a pest or whatever, you still have the ability to ask someone why they think what they think. If there's anything that this has taught me on a personal level after thinking about the work in context and the work now, it's how it relates to me. I honest to God, I think that discourse shouldn't be an unemotional thing per se, but it should be kind of an impersonal thing. Like, me asking why you think that good things come to those who wait isn't an attack on you. It's a genuine sense of curiosity that will, if answered, provide intel for my experience of the world. And if you're having a discourse with something that's really close to your heart, something you have a lot of personal experience with, you can fully examine that within yourself, which I think sometimes a lot of people are kind of hesitant to do. If I'm trying to have a discourse and someone's words really sting for some reason, I can say to myself, you know what, this hurts, but I'm not here to get hurt. I'm here to understand. Ooh, that was good. It was a bit of a Dr. Phil-ism. Check me out. Like, my experience may, in fact, be bringing in biases of my own, which is totally cool because I'm human. Everybody's human. Everyone's going to have biases in conversations. But I need to examine them because What did he say? What did he say? The unexamined life is not worth living. Thank you. I need to get that as like a tramp stamp or something. I love it. Oh, I love it. It really is, it is my personal motto, I think. It got to me the first time I ever read the Apology in undergrad, and it sticks with you. And it's, it's one of those quotes you find on a coffee mug, or a coaster, or a matching coffee mug and coaster set. But sometimes it goes over your head, you really have to think about it. The unexamined life is not worth living. Just going back and rereading this reminds me of, like, this is how I want to be, and this is how I think the world should be. Even if it's hard to do, or upsetting, or painful, I think that the world should be a place where we can all sit back and think about, why we do the things we do without prejudice and with total impunity. Whether or not it changes our minds about stuff, that's kind of secondary. I just want us to be able to do it. I mean, until, of course, the Athenian Council decides that we shouldn't be doing it, and they make us all drink the hemlock, which, in modern America, I guess the equivalent would be some guy pulls a gun on you or something. But, Socrates, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said if there was a choice between death or truth, that you gotta choose truth, no matter what. Like, we don't know if death is good or bad, we don't know if death is anything, but we know that truth is good, and without truth, it's bad. It's bad. Like, it took Socrates a lot of conversations with people on all sides from walks of life until he made it to the Athenian Council. So, like, it'll probably take a lot of conversations with people in your life before you make it to the guy with the gun, maybe. But, like, I think you shouldn't live in fear of him or the Athenian Council or anybody who's trying to stifle your sense of understanding. You just, keep trying to understand stuff. That's all we can do when the world makes no sense, is we can try to understand it. Take it from Socrates, man. He knew what was up. Anyway, there we go. That's entry number 3 for all you cool cats and kittens. Tiger King, am I right, everybody? All right. Tune in next time, where I'll be producing something in the next week or 2 weeks, or somebody else will be producing something, and we'll keep the ball rolling on this.